Hello and welcome to His Kingdom and Our Good. I'm Kyle Smith, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean so much to me. Today we have a very special guest. My good friend Jeremy Daniels is with us, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell the folks who you are.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Thank you. My name is Jeremy Daniels. I'm the associate and youth pastor down at Forest Burdett Memorial United Methodist Church, just down the road. And I brought a couple things with me.
Show and tell.
Because we are a connectional church here in the Methodist Church, I wanted to return this St. John coffee mug, because this is Coffee with Kyle, that someone at our work was given. So this rightfully belongs to your church.
Thank you. We've missed it.
You have missed it. Now, I'm not sure if it's one that's from the kitchen or if it was a welcome gift, but we have one left over from our welcome gifts with our logo on it. So not only do you get your mug back, but you can also have one of ours as well.
And I appreciate that. And whenever I go and do coffee with Jeremy,
that's right.
I'll bring it back to you.
That's right. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Yeah. And Jeremy, you are a seminary student.
Yes, I currently am. I am slowly seeing the end of the tunnel. I'm on my.
Is there any other way to go through seminary?
I recommend going as slow as you can. But no, I'm in my 8th semester, I believe, with a couple summer and January classes thrown in there. But my 4th year of seminary, I started back in 2017. And I believe there's light at the end of this tunnel in a couple more years. But yeah, I'm currently attending Asbury Theological Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky.
Also kind of in Orlando.
Right, yes. I do like to take those winter classes down in Orlando. Just something about being near the sun and not Lexington, maybe. I don't know. It's just two different things there. So, yes.
And as a seminary student, that means you are currently on track to become an elder and full-time senior pastor in the United Methodist Church.
Right. I am already a licensed local pastor, but God called me after that moment and told me, you should go to seminary. So here I am, 4 out of maybe 6.5 years of the journey. But as of right now, I am on track for the elder position.
Which leads us into what we are going to discuss. And if you've seen the Coffee with Kyle's before, we just bring up one big question and we discuss just kind of how we feel and what we think about the subject. And the question for us today is, what is the future of the church? Which, Lord knows, that is a very vague question.
Right.
And I don't mean just the United Methodist Church, but church in general.
Right. Yeah, I think when we stop and look at where we are currently at with COVID and just the way that we've had to operate since March, I think it's given churches a lot of time to rethink things and say, maybe the way we were approaching the gospel and how to present it to people might not work in the current situation that we find ourselves in. So I think we've had to rethink a lot of how we minister to people, how we reach out to people in new ways, where we kind of have new limitations that are placed on how we can communicate with people. Face-to-face is not always recommended from those guidelines that we're to follow.
Right. I've heard a lot of churches say this, and I can speak for St. John, and it's affected us, is we have been forced, and it ended up being a good thing, to really focus on our online presence. We've been live streaming for probably 3 years now, but we were doing it just off an iPad, and the sound wasn't great, the video wasn't great. But now, because of the restrictions, we have been forced to upgrade our camera system, now our product looks pretty good. And it's cool because you can see where people are watching from, and we'll get people from 10, 12 states watching on a Sunday morning.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, I know down at Forest Burdett, we were live streaming for 0 days, I believe, up until mid-March, and unfortunately that was the week that I was scheduled to preach. So, and everybody turned on that first time, and they just see, we at that point had one phone right in front of my face, and that was it. But as the weeks went on, we realized, okay, this is, first of all, something we want to do. We want to stream. We want to be present online for our neighbors and for just an outreach ministry in general. But to step up our production and to add new things and find new ways to make it not necessarily for our sake, but for the reach that the kingdom has, is saying, let's do this to the best that we can. And over time, I've been watching your alls as well, so I noticed those changes right away before we talked, that you guys had upgraded some things as well. And you get to see other pastors are watching your live stream because they've either pre-recorded theirs or theirs is at a different time. So it's kind of neat to see. We're championing each other because we're in it for the gospel, right? We were wanting to strive to do this best for God, not just like a personal church thing. So it's been kind of neat to see that as a new way for us to, pat each other on the back and praise God for the connection.
Yeah, it's forced us to really focus on going beyond our own walls because in West Virginia from March through June, beginning of June, no one could come into the walls.
Right.
And so if we wanted to reach people, which is the calling of the church, we had to do it differently than we've always done it.
Right.
Both of us working for church and having worked for churches for years, we know the phrase, we've always done it this way. That is a lot of times the chief deciding point into doing something. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't do anything the way we've always done it.
Yeah, what we've done before was no longer an option.
Yeah, not allowed.
Yeah, not allowed, restricted.
And so, that in the COVID period, which we're still in, it forced us to change and ended up being a good thing. Not that COVID is a good thing, but the church is not the quickest to make changes.
Right, yeah. We've never had a history of being on the cutting edge of change.
A lot of times it's reactive instead of proactive.
Absolutely.
And the church still operates, in my opinion, and this might be a little controversial, and I'll deal with any blowback. The church still operates as if it's the 60s, 70s, and that it's the Field of Dreams mantra. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Obviously, neither of us were in church in the 60s and 70s because neither of us were alive. But the church was the center of the community, the center of social life. You opened the doors, people came.
Right.
But over the last couple decades, and really this last decade, that's changed. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I've been to several trainings around the conference and around different places, and that's one of the things they point to is how we're stuck in this mindset that we're the insert denomination here. In our case, we're the Methodist church in this area, and if somebody new moves to town, they're just going to search themselves for the cross and flame to see the logo and say, okay, this is where I go to church. You just open the door and the people just flood right in, right? But we know that growing up in these last couple decades, that's not the case. That people aren't just dying to get in here. You really have to be intent on making relationships with people and introducing yourself as a representative of the church before you can invite them into church.
And it's ironic. I agree with everything you said, but it's ironic that we're saying we need to become intent on making relationships, which
sounds awesome.
Well, and that's what the church was.
Yeah.
I'm going to say we need to move beyond what we were 30, 40 years ago and move to what it was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And when they were just meeting in houses. Again, I'm all for being controversial today. I don't know that the church was ever meant to just be hundreds of people showing up on a Sunday.
Yeah.
That breeds a lot of ability to become a spectator in the church.
Right, like a consumer in a way. It's like, I'm here, like you're going out to a movie and you go and you expect to be entertained, whereas the church is really meant for us to work together. I know we can't join hands like we once were because of restrictions, but we can still do the work that God's called us to do. But coming in and just sitting down and being a part of a large service is not what the church was meant to do.
And if the church becomes so focused on entertainment, which that was kind of the reaction to what was going on, is to get more people in, let's make this more consumer friendly, let's
attractive.
There are so many more, I'm not sure the right words. I'm going to say better is not the right word, but there are so many other entertainment opportunities for people to go to than the church. And I don't think the church can thrive being built on entertainment.
Right. To be in a competitive.
Right.
With
and there's
so much
competition now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more to occupy people's time with now than there was 20, 30 years ago. I remember growing up, going to church, and, it was somewhat implied that Wednesdays and Sundays were sacred times.
Yeah.
And now all of our schedules, even us who work in the church sometimes find ourselves having things on our schedule that coincide with what was normally set apart for church time. But yeah, there's way more competition there now than there was when we were kids.
So and the competition's not lessening.
No.
We kind of thought during the COVID period, things are going to start slowing down. It's going to allow people to get back to church or watch church more. And that was true for a couple months. And then and of course, us both being in youth ministry, we see a lot of the effects of sports.
Yeah.
And different travel, extracurricular things happening on Sundays that take families away from the church. And so it only took a couple months before that got ramped up again.
Right.
So where should the church be heading to? Where should our focus be? Which you've mentioned some on the building relationships.
Right. Yeah, I think it, coming from our background in youth ministry is, building that relationship, first of all, before any parent is going to trust you with their child, there has to be some sort of relationship established. So it's it's for the whole church. I mean, we can't just invite somebody to church and then if they show up, you don't talk to them. You just expect them to sit down and partake and soak it all in by themselves with no guidance, no welcoming, no one-on-one follow up or anything like that. So it is a relationship with Jesus Christ is personal. But it's helpful to have another person who's helping you and showing you and welcoming you.
It's communal as well as personal.
Right, absolutely. So it takes more than just an opening of the door and just waiting for people to flood the sanctuary. So yeah, I think being more intentional and more follow up has to happen, which takes more than just staff to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah, the follow up is important. Because if you look at the Great Commission, it does not say we are to go out and make Christians. It does not say we are to go out and make church members. It says we are to go out and make disciples.
Absolutely.
And disciples is not a one conversation thing. It is, look at how Jesus did it. Spent really 3 years up until his death of day-to-day living with his disciples. It's 2 Thessalonians, I think 5:8, where it says, "We loved you so much that we were delighted to not only share the gospel with you, but our lives as well." And that's discipleship. It's living life together with other disciples. And I think that's where the future of the church needs to be. We need to recognize that opening the doors is not enough. And when we open the doors, it's not for people to come in, but it's for us to go out into the world and to reach those people. Because, if you look at all the statistics, there is a majority of people who need to hear the gospel. They aren't churched or aren't going to church at least. They don't identify as Christians, aren't Christians. And so our own neighborhoods have become mission fields.
Right. Absolutely. You tell as a leader in the church, you remind your folks that when you leave this place, that's where the mission field is. It's not in a foreign country. It's not on a summer 1 week trip. It's everyday living that we've got to be willing and ready to live that lifestyle and not just here on Sundays in the pews. It's funny that you mentioned 2 Thessalonians. I believe it was 1 Thessalonians 5:4, I believe it is, when it reminds us that, the thief that comes in the night, that's all throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus spoke it. But it's a reminder that, just because we're in this pandemic, we want to panic and we want to throw our hands up, and it's not like we were on the track to already know what was going to happen anyways, right? Like this pandemic was not just one curve. I mean, every day is something new, and so we have to live as Christians and as the church as the unexpected could happen at any point, and we've just got to be ready to adapt to it. So being able to take stuff online and being able to refocus, that shows that the church maybe isn't as stubborn as we once thought about change, but we've got to be ready for whatever comes next. Whether it's the good Lord returning or whatever it is, we have to live in that expectation that the Word already tells us anyways that we should have been living life like, but to live it with purpose and live it with, now maybe we might have a little extra drive that, we've gone through something like this that people will read about in history books years and years later, that, hey, we've gone through something, let's be ready for whatever happens next. And let's be more purposeful about building relations and make it matter, and not just come and expect to be served, but go out and serve.
And if we were to take that mentality and we were to live it out, and of course we will struggle and stumble and fail all along the way, because no matter what happens, we're still going to be human and still going to have our problems. But if we at least are striving towards that, then having to shut the doors of the church won't shut down the church.
Right.
The church was never meant to be a building. It was always meant to be a people.
Yeah.
And if we're doing what you say there, I think we can be the church, and the future of the church would be in such a great position, and which it is, because God's going to win. We know that.
Right. Yeah.
But it is our calling to bring and expand His kingdom here on earth while we're here.
Yeah. We've got the mission to do. The mission hasn't changed.
No.
The setting might look a little different.
The context is different.
Your key fob may not work to get in the church if you're, a trustee or something, because we're not allowed in the building. But the work is still there. The work is still to be done. People still need to hear the good news of Jesus Christ, and that will never change.
No.
So we know that, and so we've already got our instructions. Now we just need to do it. Follow up.
Amen.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for taking this time and coming on here. And thank you for watching again. It means just the world to me. If you have thoughts on what we said, whether you agree or disagree, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. And remember, I love you, but more importantly, God loves you.